I am the guy that kept several gyms alive by just paying for a membership without ever showing up for years.
I'm going to say 6 months ago, December.
Sure.
Yeah.
And somebody had told me Jordan was going to run the half marathon. I would have thought one of several things was happening. None of them would have been the truth.
Okay.
It was a joke, but you did it. You made a decision and you did it. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, where you were at and why you decided to run a half marathon? Like, where did that come from?
What have I wasted so far in my life that I could have been doing so much more with? What excuse do I have not to do something like this? Like, what's stopping me from doing this? And the answer was nothing.
Hey, man, you want to talk about God? I'm excited to have you here, Jordan.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
We've done some podcast stuff before in a completely different scenario.
Yep.
Right? But now we're here because the day that we're recording this, actually yesterday, the day previous, on May 7th,
Correct.
2023,
Yep.
Jordan McFarland ran a half marathon. Let's give a round of applause.
That's amazing.
And that blew out producer Matt's ears.
You'll never be able to hear
Hook 'em
again.
horns, Jordo.
Right.
Thank you for that welcome,
You
guys.
ran a half marathon.
I did.
And just to paint a picture for everyone, right? If we look, I'm going to say 6 months ago, December.
Sure.
Yeah.
And somebody had told me Jordan was going to run the half marathon. I would have thought one of several things was happening. None of them would have been the truth.
Okay.
It was a joke. Somebody like bet you to do it. And then you just were like, all right, screw it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But you did it. You made a decision and you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's so cool about that is to see your journey over the last couple of months. Now, race day has happened. You completed it, right? You did all the things you did.
Yeah.
But can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, where you were at and why you decided to run a half marathon? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. So December Jordan.
Yes,
Take
December
us to
Jordan.
December
Jordan.
Yeah.
So I got dinner with a friend, and there may have been other people there, and he told me for whatever reason that he decided to sign up to run the half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him and I was like, congratulations, God bless you, good luck, like that's amazing.
I love that for you.
Wish you nothing but the best. I love that for you. Like, that's great, man. Like, you get him. And then that was probably late November, early December that dinner happened. And then a couple weeks later, Corey sends, I forget if it's in person or a text or what. He's like, I just read this book. You got to read it. It's phenomenal. David Goggins.
Because you had just sent me a book, I think, a couple months before that.
Oh,
I think I listened
Mm-hmm.
to. So you already clarified.
Okay, so there we go.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
you had made a recommendation. And I think we were kind of talking about books to read. And I had just listened to Can't Hurt Me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like.
So you give that to me as a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had no idea how Jordan was going to respond to that too.
Right.
Because like, just realistically going through is like, Jordan, like, you were an athlete like in high school, like
way, literally 20
but
years ago.
But not living
back
like
in the day.
like we every now and then like we would send text messages back and forth about like accountability or workout, very sporadically.
Yeah.
Kind of like thing. So like just I wasn't in a spot where I was like trying to be like, hey, you should read this and push you to work out or anything. But like I don't know how you feel, but like this is what I just listened to, and I think it's really cool. I think you should get into it.
So you make that recommendation to me, and I go on Amazon. 2 days later, I get the book.
You send me the text.
I
It's
sent
here.
you
Like,
the
oh,
text.
he's in it.
Prime shipping. Thank you, Jeff, for setting this all up. And December, I can go back through my email. It was like December 23rd or something around that date. I'm reading the book. I'm halfway through, not even, probably right about halfway through the book. I go onto the marathon website and I sign up right there to run the half marathon.
So what made you decide, like, was that on a whim? Was that like, I'm reading, which we've basically done an entire episode about David Goggins and these books. I believe, Drummer Matt, for episode 3 or 4, one of them,
early.
and we talked about
early
Jordan
in the series.
It was like 3 or 4. It was called Mental Fortitude.
Yeah.
But when you decided to sign up for that, was it just like, I'm reading this, he runs a bunch of marathons, I'm going to do it? Like, what?
The process.
What made you go, I'm going to go to the marathon website?
Yeah, so I remember sitting on my couch reading the book, and I'm sitting there, and what's going through my mind is, what excuse do I have not to do something like this? Like, what's stopping me from doing this? And the answer was nothing. There's nothing that could be happening in my life that's like, you can't go run 13 miles. And I picked into to Taylor, to your point. I forget when this text happened, and then you read a little bit ahead of me because this was part of Never Finished. But I remember getting a text from you. It's like, how do you train for a half marathon? You don't. You train for a full, kind of a thing. And that's also a David Goggins ism there. I'm pretty sure that was in his second book, Never Finished. But going from where I was from a physical standpoint and also, I guess, a mental fortitude standpoint, the half marathon seemed a lot more feasible than a full marathon at the time.
Yeah.
And that was the end of December without having worked out for a very long time, let alone doing like serious cardio related training. I think the half just kind of made more sense to me. Like, it seemed like enough of a challenge. Like, not that a 10K, 6 miles, 6.3 miles isn't a challenge in and of itself, but like that seemed almost too easy to be able to accomplish to set as a goal. And so I think that's how I settled on the half. I
remember texting you, and I think it was around that time, around Christmas, because I had recommended the book, and then like kind of ghost, like we didn't like talk about the book at all, and like following up and be like, what did you, because I think you texted me like, have you read Never Finished? And I was like, not yet, but that's like next. And I said like, what do you, like, you read Can't Hurt Me, like, have you made any goals? Yeah. And Jordan just hit me with I just signed up for the half marathon. And I was like, what? Dang. Because I read Can't Hurt Me, and it was like, I applied some things like to like my regular routine or whatever, but it's like, I didn't like go out and set a crazy challenge for myself. And I was really struck by that right away, of being like, oh, like the action of like, because I think a lot of times we're presented with opportunity. Like, opportunity is everywhere. Sure. Especially if we're listening to podcasts, reading books, doing things that like kind of challenge us and push us forward. But like, how often do we actually action those things? And I think that's few and far between. So like, what was it in the, I guess, the message or the, like, what besides like, it's like I don't have an excuse to not do it. Yeah. Because really, when you sent me that text, the next day I sent you a video and I went for a run. And I was like, well, if you're saying there's no excuse,
what excuse do you have then?
What do I have?
Yeah.
Which just pushed me to a whole nother level of like being able to run, which I had never done before, like really as an adult. So just, I guess, the account of like removing the excuses. Yeah. Like, so
I am the guy that kept several gyms alive by just paying for a membership without ever showing up for years.
Through COVID.
Before COVID was even a thing. Like, years and years of paying a monthly membership due with the intention of, oh, I'll go there before work one day, or I can go there on my lunch break, or whatever, fantasy I had in my head. That just, and it's $13, it's $17. Like, my life will go on. Like, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars, like, whatever, that's fine. I've signed up for a Tough Mudder before, and with the intention of like, well, since I paid for it, I'm going to get in shape and go through it and get it done. But never actually followed through with it. I sold my bib or whatever off to somebody else and didn't end up doing it for less than what I paid to Tough Mudder.
Wow.
But I don't know. I think I was just looking for a challenge, to be honest with you. Like the principle that he talks about of just unlocking something deeper in our minds that we haven't before. I think that's really what struck me the most. And the potential, the opportunity, as you were saying a little bit ago, that's what really hit me as like, what have I wasted so far in my life that I could have been doing so much more with?
If you had to describe yourself like last year, right? October, November, December.
Sure.
With 3 words. Like they don't have to be negative. I'm just curious. Like how, like if I said December Jordan, like what 3 words would you use to describe yourself? What would you say?
So I'd like to look at it from comparing the two people, because at the root, hopefully who I was back then, I still am today, just changed a little bit. So I'd say October, November, throughout December. I didn't start training for this until very early January. I'd say I lacked self-discipline, and that presented a whole slew of other things to happen because of that lack of self-discipline in terms of my eating habits, my drinking habits. Yeah, so from that standpoint, I was lacking in that sense. So not having a good foundation of self-discipline. I'd say I wasn't super motivated back then. Like I was doing what I had to do, but not much I was meeting the bar without doing anything to try to exceed or surpass kind of that bar there. And there's 2 for you for right now.
I'll
come back with a third.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about this idea. You brought up the word, to take it back a little bit, like fantasy.
Yeah.
And like what's the thing that pushes our fantasies into realities? Like the change that has to happen inside for us to say like, because I mean, you've been going through this too, dude, like with your early morning discipline and stuff like that too. It's like, when does something become like this daydream, this outward sign for what's the difference of the Tough Mudder versus the half marathon? Like when is that actually like, because I think it's even like, we always talk about even in church, like this idea of like behavior modification isn't going to be lasting. Like we need a heart change.
Sure.
So I think even like, not to just like jump into like a spiritual realm of like, and is it even something that we can actually plan to and do and like choose to have a heart change happen? Or is it something that just like, is it just the circumstances? Is it just the time and space that we're in that God works in us and there's actually something different happens? And we say, nope, I'm going to respond differently to the same feeling that I've had multiple times in my life probably.
Yeah.
So I have one answer to that because I recently listened to a sermon where that wasn't exactly talked about, but it was talked about. But I want to get there. I don't want to give an answer yet.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Sure. Anything.
Because I want to know what the process was like. Honestly, like you make this decision, right? You start to form this discipline. Like you begin it, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're talking, like you make this decision that you're going to use some form of self-discipline that you said you were lacking, right? To turn this fantasy into a reality. And so what was the process like? Like even just like the first 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, you sign up, then what happens?
Right. Like
then
you
I
start training,
regret
like
the decision.
Right.
My
like,
wife sends me a text. She's like, I think somebody stole our debit card. But she looked at me. She's like, you really did this? And I was like, yeah, I really signed up for this. And at the time in the end of December, I don't know what she thought of that happening at that time. Like if you would have told her
like how realistic
like
it was
on
be.
a scale of 1 to 100, how likely is Jordan to actually follow through with this?
And run a half marathon.
Maybe I'll ask. I'll ask.
Let's take an
I'll
over
ask her
under.
that later.
25%.
I'm gonna go under on 25.
I think that's fair. I think
We have
that
to-
that
we
is.
have
I think a
completely
more
fair.
engaging one would have been like 8.
We need to send Mel a text, and then whatever her answer is, put it
Right.
up in the story.
I'll get that for you later. But I think Corey, you were starting to touch on it. I think this season of my life is just different than all the other seasons, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, like every season's a little bit different. But now that I'm a father, I have a 2-year-old,
Mhm.
a little bit more than 2 now. I kept seeing this thing on Instagram pop up, and it was probably a TikTok thing that I saw as an Instagram reel or whatever. It was something along the lines of, like a parent tells their kid, you can be whatever you want when you grow up, or you can do whatever you want. You can achieve anything you want. And the kid eventually looks back at the parent and says, well, why haven't you? Kind of a thing.
Sheesh.
And in hearing that, and I'm not saying like that is what made me do this, but like I definitely recall seeing these
Yeah.
videos or this string of similar type things striking me enough to pause and be like, wow, like, yes, I want to tell my son he can accomplish whatever he wants to, whatever he wants to set out for, he can do. There is no goal, no dream, no aspiration that's too big for him.
Mhm.
But at some point, he might just turn around and look at me and be like, no, why are you still doing X, Y, Z? Why are you still overweight? Why can you still not run a mile without being out of breath? Why can't you do this thing?
Yeah.
So,
Man, I think, is there something there? This idea of like, we tell our kids, you can be whatever you want, you can have any goals, but like framing it, I guess, in a way of like putting a hard challenge in front of you.
Yeah.
And setting an example of like showing the ability to take on something challenging. And it can be physical, it can be lots of other things, but like I guess the awareness to say, I'm going to choose, because realistically, your son is probably not going to remember his dad running a half marathon.
unless I tell him or he sees pictures
But
on Instagram or
He
something.
will hear the story.
He will.
And like, that,
Yeah.
but like, that's
After what I went through yesterday, he will be hearing this story.
and he's
Yeah.
gonna know. Like, that's like, it's just like, that's how we set a change in like really like kind of when we talk a lot about the next generation. And like, I think it was Gandhi that said like, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, do the thing, like
Yeah.
set the example. And it's like, I think we kind of give in because it's easy to say like, well, it's like as the generation prior, you can look up and be like, what are you talking about? You want me to aspire to all these things? You want me to take on these hard challenges, to do difficult things, to put myself in uncomfortable situations? But I don't see you doing any of that.
Sure.
So what a gift to be able to show our children that we are still actively putting ourselves in those uncomfortable situations,
Yeah.
making the more difficult choices
Right.
for the betterment of ourselves, which ultimately we should lead to like,
We should be
when
doing
we're-
anyways, right?
but when you're a better version of you, you're a better husband.
100%.
You're a better father. Go ahead. Sorry.
So no, I literally had this thought today. I was on Instagram and I saw a post from Gary V. Okay,
Gary.
good old Gary V.
Wine text.
And it was a post that was something like somebody with somebody who is a great person with C+ talent level will always beat
Mhm.
somebody who has an A+ talent level but is a piece of crap, essentially. Something along those
Mhm.
lines, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you say like, you know, telling telling our children that, oh, you can do whatever you want to do, you can reach whatever you want to reach, right? The whole world does that. Like culture and society,
Yeah.
social media does that. They, like if you look online, especially now with e-commerce and everything that goes on, right? Everybody's telling you that you can do something if you just do it. Like that's where it stops, is you can do it if you just do it.
Nike.
Or want it, right?
Just do it.
If you want it, then you can go and get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not until usually you pay some amount of money or you do something that then you figure out, no, it actually takes a lot of discipline and a lot of work and a lot of like things that you don't want to do to actually get there.
Nobody's selling you on the 6 o'clock mornings.
Correct.
Of running.
No, they don't tell you that's part of it. Yeah.
Right. But you did it anyway. So you go through and you start. Like, where did you get? You just got a training plan, like off the internet.
Once again, this is all Corey's
From Corey
fault.
Jones.
So Corey puts me on the book. Corey gives me a training plan.
That came from the Pittsburgh Marathon.
He did, okay, so you didn't create it, but you're the one that sent me a text. Hey, here's a link to a training plan, and it's through the Pittsburgh Marathon's website.
Yep.
Free guide. You don't have. I don't even think you needed to like prove you registered for it.
I didn't register, and I.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. That's true.
But like, think of how many people have downloaded a guide like that from the internet somewhere and then still haven't run it. Like they had all those thoughts that you did about all the gems you've been keeping in business for years, right?
Yeah.
So you start the first week. What was that like?
What I loved about this training plan was it made getting to 13.1 miles actually achievable and actually something that seemed like I could do it. And it
like
started
when you first just looked at it?
Well, just literally just looking at it.
Yeah.
It was like generally the schedule, at least early for the majority of it, was like a short run on Monday, a medium run on Wednesday, a short run on Friday, and a longer run on Saturday. And the first week was like 1 mile, 2 miles, 1 mile. And then I think they stretched us to like 3.1 on Saturday. And then the next week was another like 1, 2, 1, 3 kind of thing. And it just seemed like going from couch to half marathon, like I can do a mile.
Yeah.
I can do 2 miles. Okay, 3 miles, that might be getting me outside my comfort zone. That might be a little bit more difficult. I might not be able, like...
Yeah, until you do
like,
it.
I'm going to suck it up.
It unlocks. And then you're like, oh, I did 3 miles.
Yeah. And then just feeding off of that success of, okay, I did 3 miles. A couple of weeks later, it might be 4. And then the week later, it might be 5. And then 6. And then 8.
Like small progressions.
Yeah. And it just seemed... Like looking at this plan, my thought was, I could do this right now. Like, if I give myself, if I actually stick to this, I have no doubt in my mind that at the end of this 18-week training plan, that I can do 13.1 miles.
Yeah, and I was so impressed though because like the reality is like you have to stick with it, and so Man, I won't forget, like, there were several texts that you sent me over the course, or a group of us over the course of the last, 20 weeks, however long it's been.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, something, you sent a text, I think you were traveling with your wife, like, on a vacation, and you just bagged out, like, a 6-mile runner or something.
Yeah.
And maybe in South Carolina. You were down south somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it. I'm going to swear, but I was, like, in my mind, I said, holy shit, Jordan's actually going to do this. Like, I knew as soon as you sent that, I was like, whoa, like he is in. Because, like, in my head, the Jordan that I knew, how I saw you, which we can talk about whether that's right or wrong, was, hey, like, I can be doing this thing, but when I go to vacation, like, I'm vacationing.
That's fair. That is
and there was a
100%
like, I'm
fair.
still vacationing, but I'm still disciplined.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that text that morning. Was it South Carolina or something?
Yeah, so there were 2 trips. One was in January, middle of January. My wife and I went to Charleston, South Carolina, and I ran while we were down there. I packed up my running shoes, workout clothes, the whole thing. And that was, and I'm going to say only 3 or 4 miles now compared to the 13 that I ran yesterday. And then the second time was I went down to visit my mom in Florida, and that was 5 or 6 miles. It was like I flew out Saturday afternoon, got in late, Friday, got in late Friday, spent all day Saturday, flew home Sunday morning kind of a thing. Saturday morning, I got up, I ran my 6 miles, mapped it out on Google Maps, figured out the course to run and did that. And I think it was because I didn't trust myself to stick with it if I took those days off.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's why I went out of my way to make sure I got those runs in at that time.
Yeah.
Thinking back on it.
So you've already, like, you quote unquote won. You did the race.
I did.
Talking about the training.
Yeah.
The reality is not every day is a success.
100%.
So talk about, like, what were the lows like?
Yeah.
How did you get through them? Like, was every day, did you like feel like, whoo,
No.
I'm being the best
God,
version of
no.
myself and I love it? Like,
No, not every day felt like that by a long stretch. There were several times. One immediately comes to mind where I went to a hockey game and I was a guest of one of the banks that my company uses, and I ate too much fried food. I had a couple too many beers, but I woke up the next day, got my how many ever miles I was supposed to do in at a slower pace than what I had been trending at. Like, if I didn't do that the night before, I would have expected my time to be X, but it was X plus like 50% or something.
Right.
So at first I was really mad at myself for losing my self-discipline because the decisions I made the night before impacted my run the next morning.
Yeah.
And then from there, and I forget if it was you, Corey, or drummer Matt, or whomever it was in our group chat, it was like, bro, you still got your X number of miles in.
mm-hmm.
The time be damned, you still got your work in. Like, that's the win. And it wasn't until a couple of those instances happened that made me step back and be like, you know what? The win is getting the work in. I still did it. I showed the discipline of waking up, of setting my alarm early that next morning, of going through my routine, of getting on the treadmill, of getting my time in. It just took a little bit longer than I was hoping for.
Right.
So was I the best version of myself? Yes and no.
Right.
Yes, I was the best version of myself because I got out there, being on the treadmill. I did what I needed to do to follow this plan, but no, because it wasn't nearly as efficient as it should have been otherwise. And there were several of those instances over this 18, 19 weeks of training that I had very similar things happen where, I stayed up too late, or I drank too much, or I ate, not great food, or whatever it was that hampered or dampened my experience the next day getting my time in. But generally speaking, there were very few times over this 18 weeks that I didn't answer the bell and I didn't get it done at some point. So
I love that. Go ahead, Matt. I hear your lips.
I think it's like when you're trying to build a discipline like that and you kind of fall short, it's really easy to kind of beat yourself up.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to build that habit, to want to punish yourself for not meeting your expectation, there's a practice of self-compassion that plays into it. What do you think of that difference between, where's that line between, having the discipline and acknowledging your shortcomings with a negative response and having the self-compassion also to move past it?
I think it helped a tremendous amount having people to hold me directly accountable to this, to bring me back down to earth, to frame my mind of, hey, you still did this. Like, there's no asterisk on your X number of miles that you just put in because it took you a little bit longer. Like, you still did that. And I think the difference, the distinction is, I'm not at the front of the pack of the half marathon competing to win the thing, right? Like, there was
Not with that attitude.
Taylor's favorite.
You're correct. I'm just gonna say the guy that won the entire marathon in Pittsburgh did 26 miles in 14 minutes ish less than I did 13. So.
Right.
So I'm very, very
He's
far.
freakish though.
Yeah.
He's the Flash. He's
It's
a comic book
genetics.
character.
That's not.
Genetics.
It's not
Yeah.
like something you can.
So
fix.
Matt, did I answer your question? Like I think you need to frame that the win is doing the work, not how long it took you to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
The win for me was building that discipline, continuing to build that discipline, and then realizing, hey, I came across these struggles because I did X, Y, and Z. These were the behaviors that impacted the end result.
Yeah.
And okay, well, if I want to hold myself to a standard of running a mile in X number of minutes, I cannot engage in A, B, C, and D or any combination thereof.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So being able to like step back, kind of analyze why I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, but then condition myself to be like, you know what, that wasn't a failure.
Yeah.
Just don't do this next time.
Yeah.
Throughout this process, right? I think that so lately I've still been getting up at 6 a.m. and I've basically been walking a mile a morning.
That's great.
I've been very busy with some business that requires me to be up really early in the morning.
Okay.
But I want to get some physical activity in, right? So I'm just
That's
doing
great.
that, and it's like 13, 14, 15 minutes somewhere in there, and then I'm good and I go to work, right? But I think what's interesting is that, you know, even my decision was just I'm going to get up early, right?
Yeah.
But your decision of you're going to run this marathon. What other
Half marathon. Big difference between the two.
Only if you say it that way. The end result, dude, you ran a freaking half marathon.
I did, but not. I appreciate.
I'm
that.
just as impressed with you, like that
Thank
you
you.
ran a half marathon as Brandon, another one of our friends, running a full marathon. Like that's impressive. That's great.
Yeah, but he
I'm
looks
super
like a
pumped
runner,
for
right?
Brandon.
Brandon
but
looks like a runner.
Brandon, he really does.
He's got those legs,
Right.
Long legs, good
Right.
quads.
My question is, what other areas of your life did you see growth in over the past 5 months?
Yeah. There were a bunch of goals that I laid out for myself at the beginning of the year. And I think you guys may have touched on it in one of the previous episodes from our small group. That was kind of a challenge that we had was, you know, lay out goals for yourself, but then also, and this might get into something that you want to talk about later, but add a piece of scripture on top of it to show that like you're biblically aligned with, you know, what you want to accomplish. And I broke out my list of goals into a bunch of different aspects of my life. So physical being one of them. One of my goals was to run 13.1 miles. I had relational goals.
What was the scripture behind the half marathon?
I can pull it up.
Pull it up.
Okay. All right. So for my physical goals,
Yeah.
it was to run a half marathon
Yep.
and then get down to lose so much weight. And the scripture I found to help support that was 1 Corinthians 9:27. But I train like a champion athlete. I subdue my body and get it under my control so that after preaching the good news to others, I myself won't be disqualified for the prize. Which I don't
Translation
think
is that?
probably the
That
passion,
sounds
to be
good.
honest with you.
No, that's fine. Like I was just curious.
I think the majority of the pieces of scripture I used was from the Passion
Love that.
Translation.
And just for clarity, in the small group that we've attended, like we read out of the Passion so we can have more discussion and understand it and have all the
Open
little
language,
footnotes
yeah,
and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So
Yeah,
all right, so physical was 1 Corinthians 9:27.
9:27. Yeah.
Okay, what were the other goals?
There were kind of the goal that I put overarching the entire year for me. Hebrews 12:11. Now that all discipline seems to be painful at the time, my writing is not that great. Now all discipline seems to be painful at the time, yet later it will produce a transformation of character, bringing a harvest of righteousness and peace to those who yield it.
Love it.
So that was overarching everything that I had for the year. And I think was obviously with a physical feat is very easy to see that. I had relational goals. Goal is to be a better father, a better husband, a better son, and a better brother and a better friend. Each one of those subsections I had a different verse for. Do you want me to get into that, or
I think what I'm trying to figure out is like, you know, did you have goals around eating and drinking and all of these other things, or did they come naturally, or were they harder? Were they easier? Like, because there were several changes that had to go into effect, changes, right? Yeah. To be able to do what you did. And so what I want to know is, you know, the way you described it to us earlier at the beginning was you were reading this book and you said, I don't have any excuses not to run a half marathon. So you went and signed up.
Yeah.
Right. But that wasn't just, hey, Corey, can you give me a running plan? And I'm going to just like go run a couple miles a week and then I'll be good. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of other things too.
Yeah.
And what was that process around, like, not just the physical aspect of getting on the treadmill and running? What was everything around that?
Yeah. So thank you for framing the question that way. So eventually it got to a point where I realized I was running 6 miles, 8 miles, 10 miles in a clip, like at a time. And
in a clip? Is that a runner? Is that a runner term?
I don't know.
Is that an athlete term?
At a point in time.
In a clip? Sounds like
we all know what it means.
Honestly,
I don't know. Okay,
you do you.
I don't know. 6 mile, like a
clip.
From the ammunition he has at the time.
Right.
I think it's where he's going with it.
From not running at all to running 6 miles was a substantial amount of miles to run a month and a half into this thing. And then seeing like the total number of miles over the course of the week gradually increase from single digits to low to mid 20 miles per week. Once again, with the framework of not having run anything for a very long time, I got to a point where it was like, I don't want to just waste away all the effort that I'm putting in. So that means I can't eat like I used to eat. That means I can't drink like I used to drink. So I made changes to my diet that I think have been sustainable over this period, where there were very few things that I completely cut out of my diet. I still ate pizza. I just didn't eat an entire pizza in the sitting.
Right.
Like,
that's
fair. Honestly,
that's the sustainable part, though. We always
like,
try to cut something out completely. Like, whatever your thing is, just like, I'll never do this again. I swear. I just really like, and no, it's like maybe you just need to exercise some moderation.
A little bit of moderation, a little bit of discipline, and not eating an entire pie. So maybe I'll have 2 or 3 pieces instead of 3/4 to a full pizza, or sweets, for example, like after dinner sweets, like a piece of cake or dessert or something, right? Like instead of a big piece of cookie cake or birthday cake or whatever it is, just have a smaller piece. Or
did you know what I've switched to that I think has fundamentally altered my body in a great way?
Please tell me.
Is
I just want to say, this is bad. I just want to say Viagra.
Well, it's not that. But what I was gonna say is when I have a desire for like something sweet, I get a spoonful of honey.
A spoonful.
So we just have a bottle of like honey up there. Brooke puts in like tea and coffee and stuff.
Sure.
I love
this.
I just get a spoonful and I fill it up and I get my honey.
Okay.
And it's.
I wish I'd have known that like 5 months ago. Thanks for sharing.
Is that good for you, Matt? Can you Google how much honey is healthy?
The only fact that anyone knows about honey is that it never expires. I don't think we know if it's good for you or not.
And like, I mean, kids under 1 shouldn't eat it.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't have any kids under 1 at the current moment, so I'm okay.
When Ozzy was 1,
right. I thought I remembered hearing that. Like the only absolute no to my kids' diet was
honey. I've raised 2 kids.
Mine's was Lucky Charms. Don't give her Lucky Charms. Skittles.
I feel like it was just stuff they could choke on. Is honey good for you? I mean, it's not good for you.
So
it
like
can't be.
Depends.
It's like sugar.
So the
Natural,
American
though.
Heart Association recommends.
And we have raw and unfiltered honey.
Both of them.
So that could be better. Yeah, the American Heart Association says honey should be treated like all added sugars, something to include in your diet carefully and kept to a minimum. They recommend that men consume more than 9 teaspoons per day. But
9 teaspoons?
Recommend to consume more than?
No more than.
Oh, there was
How
no.
many teaspoons
but then,
are in a
like,
tablespoon?
But
that's.
you
I
don't
know.
need to know that.
I mean,
No, I need to know if I was
Is that-
eating more than 9
and then- but then-
teaspoons.
so
I'll
then
Google it.
it gives
I'll
you,
produce the show.
It gives you, people also ask, is a spoonful of honey a day good for you? Daily consumption of honey has a beneficial effect on the level of antioxidant compounds in the body that can fight excess cholesterol.
Boom.
Winning.
Fighting excess cholesterol.
There's only
There you
3
go.
teaspoons
Research
in a tablespoon.
shows
You're a
that
third
these
of
are-
it.
3
I could eat
tablespoons.
As long as you had no other
tablespoons.
sugar
three
than
I'm
tablespoons.
straight. I'm so
Okay.
good. Brooke also buys local honey, and it helps
That's
you with
good
your
for
allergies.
Yeah.
Really?
100%.
So I've never dealt with allergies until this year, and I'm telling you,
Wait,
whatever's happened. I never
in your
experienced
47 years on Earth, you've never had allergies.
37 years.
I'm in the
Watch it.
same boat.
Never.
I've
and this
never
year,
had them until this year.
Something's going on, but like the pressure.
You need to
And,
eat
like-
less than 9 tablespoons or teaspoons of honey a day.
Of natural.
I need to eat more. I need to
Yes.
eat more local honey.
But not
I don't
more
need
than
it.
9
local, but not
teaspoons.
more than
But a
9.
tablespoon is only 3 teaspoons, so you're way under. You're
Right.
good. You're good.
Sometimes I might have had more. okay, but you're eating better. Okay, let's
Well, can we
jump back on top.
let's
No,
go back
okay.
real quick to
Oh,
that
yeah.
to
the
the
honey.
scripture to the honey.
Yes.
A land flowing with milk and honey.
Oh, preach it.
Go ahead.
Come on, Core.
Mhm. There's something different about milk and honey compared to all other foods. And I
Wait, really?
yes. And it was like talking about the metaphor of the land of milk and honey. And we will make a note and Google it and go back. But the scripture you referenced, Jordan, I
Yes.
think, as like you're like framing up your goal of being physical.
Hebrews, 1 Corinthians, which one?
1 Corinthians 9.
Okay. 9:27. I remember.
27. Okay.
And you started in 27, but I train like a champion athlete. I subdue my body and get it under my control so that after preaching the good news to others, I won't myself be disqualified, which is interesting. And I don't think you mean it this way, but I always think sometimes we grab little scriptures in context. We always talk about is very
Yeah,
important.
that can be
And
completely out of context. I don't think
no,
the
no.
context is
This will go the right way. The
Okay.
context will actually add more to
Ooh.
how
great.
you
Look
had
at me.
the discipline go naturally into other areas of your life.
Okay.
So if we that's 27. If we just go back to 25, it says a true athlete will be disciplined in every respect, practicing constant self-control in order to win the laurel wreath that quickly withers. So basically that your prize will mean nothing afterwards. So you got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, so that idea of like, if we are not just doing, I guess, a true athlete, meaning what is a true athlete? I guess like bringing it back to like, I don't just do this one thing. This is like a lifestyle choice, but we'll be disciplined in every respect. So once you decided that you're going to do it and you realize you have to go bigger, it's like, it can't help but permeate through other areas of your life.
Yeah, that's good.
So those things will, like, it's kind of like, I think we always talk about like addressing like specific problems, but not like sin problems. We struggle with pornography, but it's like actually getting to the root of it.
Mhm.
Like the scripture says, the goodness of God leads us into repentance, and that would go into changing our mind in all areas. So a true athlete gets discipline in every area of his life because he realized it's not just this one piece that I need to like. Yes, there's very much importance to whenever you make not bad decisions. You let go of the
Unhealthy
boundaries a little bit. You
unhealthy
eat
food,
you eat some
yeah.
like, and the next day, yeah, our workouts suck a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have the discipline. But the true athlete says like, nope, because of that, like I need to actually apply discipline to this area of my life because it's going to impact my ability to succeed in the way I need to, my ability to run the race, to compete and to be like victorious, like. Just to go through, I think that using that verse was absolutely appropriate for what your goal was at the beginning of the year.
Right.
But even the context of a couple more scriptures actually go even further and add more toward it. It's more applicable to what you actually saw in your life over the last 5 months.
So let's talk about race day.
Race day.
How'd it go?
The first.
Did you listen to music?
So oddly enough, the two kind of go hand in hand of where I was, where my mind originally went. The first 8-ish miles, a little bit more than 8 miles, were great. I ran at a wonderful pace.
The idea of describing great for 8 miles, oxymoron.
I agree.
Doesn't sound great. Nothing. What was great about it? You just
The pace. So the
just
pace
felt-
that I kept for all 8 miles
Was great. Okay.
So originally when I, back in January when I wrote out all these goals, or the end of December when I wrote out all these goals for 2023, my goal was just to finish the race.
Right.
Just make it across the finish line. And then Taylor, you challenged me. You're like, that's not good enough.
It's really David
Excuse me?
Goggins challenging you through me.
Well, David wasn't talking to me. It was you. So you get the credit.
Right. That's fair.
But you're like, yeah, finishing is not good enough. You need to, you need a better goal. You need I forget exactly how you said
Did that feel hard to hear? Like you're like realistically, like
Yeah.
you're already putting yourself where you're going from the couch to running a half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
A hard thing. I don't know what the percentage of people that actually will ever run a half marathon. It's very low, very, very low, like
Yeah.
less than 3%.
Yeah, so in 2019, about 2.1 million people ran a half marathon globally. And if you just take that to the population of the United States in 2019, that was 328.3 million people, or 0.6% of the U.S.
Dude,
population.
you're in the top 1%,
Think of that.
bro.
You are the 1%.
You're the 1%.
Wow.
Dude. Do you guys see the
Dude.
videos online talking about how more people in the U.S. are millionaires than have abs?
We all have abs.
I know
right?
it's just like it,
Like defined abs?
right?
You mean
Like
I could-
defined abs.
yeah.
Producer Matt, go back to doing your thing. No, but
Fact
more
checking
more
you.
people have defined
love it.
abs than millionaires. Than there are millionaires.
Wow.
Your step.
That's,
I mean,
that's interesting.
again, we all have abs.
All
like
right.
a defined six pack. That's
Right.
that. Is that ultimately what you're getting at? Like,
Yep.
like you
Yep.
could see.
I'm glad you understand.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
I'm there for you.
Thank you.
Oh, language matters.
I want to add one more little thing. So that in 2019, only 0.1% of the United States population raced at all. So even
Like
I took the
form.
global number of people that ran a half marathon divided by the U.S. population. But even if you just looked at the number of people in the United States that ran a race in 2019, you're already in the 0.1%.
Wow.
The 0.1%, Jordan.
Wow.
Which is legitimately like what Goggins talks about being like the 1%. He's like, I want to
The
be
1%
one.
of the 1%. Yeah. Wow.
Jordo, savage, bro.
Well, we were.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool to
You
hear.
are
Thanks for looking that up,
savage,
Matt.
man.
Dude.
Wow.
Is that hard to hear?
It's just really cool to hear.
Good.
Like, I know cool is such a poor adjective,
No.
but
It's validating. It should be validating in my
like
head.
just to hear that few people actually complete that.
I mean, the
task.
0.1%. That was just a stat of who raced. We don't know how many
could
of
be
them
that's,
actually
5Ks.
that's
completed it.
all. That's all.
5Ks.
We don't know how many of them
5Ks
actually
to
completed it.
marathons.
I mean, but yeah, still, yeah, that's
Well done.
it's
Well done.
really, really cool to hear.
Yeah, we're on like 4 questions, right? So what did you listen to? It's me telling you that you should have a better goal than finishing
have
a
a better
marathon
goal.
and where
Yep.
that went.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do what did you listen?
Let's start with you first. Let's
Yeah.
finish.
Driving the boat.
Let's finish this first because I
Okay.
think that's easier to get out of the way. Because then Corey's question is like, there's a
What
little
you
bit
listen
of a
to
story
is
behind
hard.
it.
Okay.
Well, there's a story
Okay,
behind it.
I love that. I
There's
want to
just-
hear it.
Love that.
I'm not saying it's
I'm
difficult. I
excited
can
for
tell
the
you
story.
precisely what it was.
No problem.
It wasn't hard hearing Taylor be like, you should
Yeah.
push yourself. Like, you need to challenge yourself. I welcomed that
Oh, man.
because I don't know. Did I truly need that motivation to push myself? Well, at the end of the race, I sure as heck did. Like, my goal ended up being so Taylor challenged me, and I don't know, given what I was running at and in the point of the training schedule and some extrapolated math equation thing, it was like, okay, realistic, like 2 hours and 30 minutes seems like something I should be able to do, which breaks down to, Matt, you could double check my math, like about 11.5-minute mile ish, plus or minus a couple of seconds on either side of that.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, like, run an 11.5-minute mile every mile for 13.1 miles. Okay, that's pushing me a little bit. And so then we get to race day, right? So I welcome the challenge.
Which is
figure out-
amazing. I think just the fact that you welcome it, because I would just be transparent right now. It's like, I think my ego would have been ready. I was like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
don't push me hard. Like I've already signed up for something.
My ego works
That's-
in a different way. My ego
Okay.
is like, be better.
That's great.
Just, okay, you did this. Great. Congratulations.
Kudos.
Do more. Like, take the next step.
Basically,
And-
Jordan's ego is better than Corey's.
For
ego.
sure. For sure.
I wasn't trying to say that, but take it.
You said it.
So another book that you recommended, and so I think why
That's
I had
great.
that mindset I think it was last year you recommended the 10x rule, the
Yes.
10x
Grant Cardone, 10x rule.
yeah, the 10x rule. And it was like, okay, so if your goal is to make $100,000, make your goal $1 million. And if you only get to $500,000, you still beat your original goal out of the water. Sure, you didn't get your whole million, but like,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. You still did better than you initially expected to. So it's like, okay, I'm going to set this goal out there. It might be stretching me,
Mm-hmm.
but if I don't get it, my time will probably still be better than what I would have tried to do otherwise.
Right.
And I think that's why I welcomed it. I took that mindset into
awesome.
into
I also
the training.
think what was interesting is this whole time, every time we talked, I was channeling David Goggins and I was telling him to run a full marathon
You were
every single time.
every single time, and I didn't give in to that.
No, you didn't. He didn't. He literally said, like, I'm good. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is a stretch. And, like, I think that is also very respectable. Of, like, you took that, but you didn't, like, fight back against it. You were like, I'm challenging myself. I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to get it done. And then you did. And I think that's amazing.
Because in the same way, we've talked about this too, when everybody started having different goals at the beginning of the year, and people were signing up and looking at you and be like, "Are you going to run the half marathon?" And you're like, "No, that's not my goal. That's not my challenge. That's not my fight right now."
Right. Yeah.
And like being able, like that doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
No,
It
not
just
at all.
means like, could get into a whole thing on that. But
Yeah.
we will.
Yeah. So
Go on,
I welcome the challenge of, and I think I set the goal of 2.5 hours. I don't think that came from you. I think your goal was, or your challenge to me was, set a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I kind of backed into that number, that time rather, to do that. And then, Corey, you were asking, what did I listen to on race day?
Yeah.
Right. So shout out to Kingdom Power. During my training, I listened to a lot of
Boom, boom.
this.
What's up?
We loved his feedback on his Wednesday runs. We could get good feedback on the.
So during my
episode.
training, I was my company the company that I used to be employed by had a hybrid work schedule where 4 days a week we could be from home, but then Wednesdays they wanted us in the office. So going back to the cadence of the training schedule, short run on Mondays, medium run on Wednesday, short run on Friday, longer run on Saturday, to be able to get into the office by, whatever time, if I wanted to be at my desk at 8:00 on a Wednesday, I needed to leave my house a little bit after 7. I needed to shower a little bit before 7. I needed to get my run in. And then Wednesday nights, we have my friend group has a standing dinner, or a friend of ours cooks dinner for us every week. And so I knew Wednesday nights weren't really an option to run. I couldn't sneak away on my lunch break.
Right.
So literally the only time to accomplish this was first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So most Wednesdays I was getting out of bed at 5, taking my pre-workout thing, stretching, doing all of that, getting my run in. During that run, I was listening to these episodes,
Love that.
That's awesome, man.
giving you guys like a
Good
little
feedback.
note
Yeah.
after
Oh,
the
very
bets.
great.
I don't even know how I got to that point. What was I listening to?
Yes.
So for whatever reason, and then on my longer runs, I was also listening to other podcasts during like my training runs. But then on race day, I had a worship music playlist, and it was only an hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes of music my expectation was that it would just kind of
Start again.
Yeah, to start again, which coincidentally was a little bit after. So like I said, I ran 8 miles. I was thrilled with how the first 8 went. I was at a 10.5 minute mile pace, roughly 12 minutes ahead of my of my 2 hours and 30-minute goal, lots of room for error, right? Like I could, I built myself a little bit of margin there. And my literally a little bit after 8 miles, my music cuts out.
Oh no.
And it was either right before or right after, like I was starting to feel not great. I started walking. And I didn't bother like trying to reset my headphones or pull out my phone or do anything like that. I just ended the last 4-ish miles of the race.
Just the suffering of your mind.
with my earbuds in, being very not happy with myself for all the walking that I was doing. So worship music for 3/4 of it, and then the last quarter, or roughly 3/4 of it, and then for the last quarter, just listening to
The sound of silence.
The sound of silence. But it was amazing seeing all the people out on the streets cheering. There were bands,
that's cool.
sporadically around the course. So it wasn't complete silence, right? Like there was other noise around. It just wasn't me and my thoughts doing.
Right. I really hope that when people listen to this, that the tension that was in the room and you telling that story of what happened after the 8 mile mark,
Yeah.
like there was a lot of tension in the room of like what's gonna happen. I don't know, but I want to know.
Yeah.
I hope that comes across to people
I hope
who are
so.
listening.
And then to tie it back to your the part of the conversation around setting the goal. So I crush it for 8 miles, thrilled with my pace. A little bit after 8 miles, I start walking. A little bit of a walk, a little bit of a jog, a little bit of a walk, a little bit of a jog, and so on. And then I look down and see the time, and I'm figuring out how much further I have, what time I'm at. Like, well, I'm quickly approaching this 2:30 mark.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had that goal, definitely the last 3/4 of a mile, if not the last full mile that I had to run, was much more stressful than I was hoping it would have been.
Right.
When I got out of bed that morning.
Yeah.
Like I had that goal, and it was like,
But you pushed.
I pushed
Because you
and
had
I got
like,
through
that was,
because
like,
I had that
you
goal.
ran, like the athlete runs to win the race.
Yeah.
Like
And-
you knew what winning meant to you
and
was getting
for
that
me
2:30.
winning was it's funny, you keep saying race, people keep calling it a race. Yes, it is a race. By no stretch was
Dude, you were racing against yourself.
No, yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's exactly where I was going. Is I didn't look at it as a race, right? Like I'm not competing against you or the other 10,000 people that ran a half marathon that day, right? The only competition I had was against me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had that goal. Well, because I had the first goal of crossing the finish line, right? Like overarching, I'm going to cross that line, period.
Mm.
And then I'm going to do it within this certain time frame.
Right.
That was the only competition there was me versus me on that clock.
What I love so much about this is like in the business world, like some of my background, right? Like when you're setting goals, you have to have a why that's big enough that actually motivates you, right? Of why you're actually going after this and why you actually want to accomplish it. And you have to actually put in the discipline to get there, right? And then goals have to be very, very defined.
Sure.
It can't just be I'm going to do something or I'm going to finish something. There needs to be a time on it. There needs to be a date on it. There needs to be
by this date.
all
Sure.
of these
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
right? And I think what's so incredible is that, like, sure, that last mile and a half, whatever it was, less stressful or more stressful,
much more stressful,
more stressful than what you wanted it to be when you woke up in the morning. Like, at the end of the day, the thing is no part of that needed to be stressful.
No.
Like, no one was telling you.
There was
You could have taken an hour to do the last half mile. Like, there would still be people.
Everybody that we know would have been unbelievably proud that Jordan finished a half marathon either way.
Correct. Like, you could have taken
Either
3.5 hours to finish, and it would have been like, Jordan finished.
went
Like, this is
13
amazing.
miles.
Like, this is crazy, right? But the fact that you had that resolve and you had that fight in you, like, that speaks volumes
Yeah.
about who you are and what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you.
That it was stressful. Like, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's an incredible thing. That everything you've been working towards was built in such a way that, you know what, if I'm not going to beat this, I'm stressed out if I don't. So I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
I know this wasn't a New Year's resolution, but like, so estimated 80% of people don't follow through with their New Year's resolutions, and most people lose it by mid-February. Talk about the role that like accountability played in getting you to here.
I think that might be the most, the single biggest part of accomplishing this was, and once again, I think this was something that came up on previous episodes, but we have the one group text of our entire small group of, there might be 20-ish people on it. And Taylor, religiously, you've been posting pictures of your workouts in the morning, 6 a.m. in the gym, crushing it. And then aside from that, there's another group text of, what's there, 5 of us? Corey, Matt, Brandon, and Ryan, where it's more running, like it was more pointed, right? Like it was for this cause of doing the race. And then several other individuals that I had, separate discussions with, separate chats with, of essentially about the same thing, but like on a one-to-one basis as opposed to like a group thing. So having the accountability of other people to not only push me to move forward, but at the same time, like if I didn't get my run in today, I felt like I was letting these people down, and I didn't want to let them down. So, which is like, essentially, I guess, is the definition of accountability, right? So like, I didn't want to let Corey down, or Matt down, or Brandon or Ryan down, or anybody else. But seeing Corey get his run in the morning in a hoodie, in a Tasso cap outside. Well, I have a treadmill in my basement. Like, the cold isn't a factor, right? Like, I can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
I work from home. I don't have to go in. Most days I work from home. I can use my lunch break, or, finagle my schedule to block off how much overtime I need. But that accountability, I think, was enormous to me throughout this process.
Yeah. There's one thing in that thread that I thought was so cool. There was a mark that happened when you started. And I feel like I don't know if it's just because of some of the texts that we've sent over the years, or like I have my brother, but like, if anybody ever got a hold of any of our phones and saw most of my camera roll is like sweaty pictures of myself, just like, just, or whatever.
Yep.
And just like kind of like this thing is very like machismo go through it. But that's just the energy I bring to the photo that I'm going to present to the group usually. And I remember there was a spot where you would send these pictures and run, and like some of your pictures, Jordan, you're just like, you look like you just got the crap kicked out of you. You're just like, got it, and you go through. And then there was a shift. Do you know the day I'm talking about?
I think so.
Where he's like, I was like, I don't want to do it, because you used to always say, it's like, I don't know why Corey looks like he's happy at the end of these things.
Yeah.
And there's a shift in one of these pictures he sends, and he doesn't have his face, but he had his hand up, and he's going through like I did it, like victorious. And then it just got more and more and more to where Jordan's the one that's sending the photos of like the O face, like right, and just like shifted to being like, you didn't just get through it, like you ran past it. Like you were bringing that level of energy, that fight, that spirit that says like, I did this and I'm freaking winning right now. Go get yours. And so when I would not have a morning where I would be up running, and if I get a text from Jordan that's like on fire and his face is lit up and he's covered in sweat and saying like, get your ass moving, I'm like, oh yeah. Like you became the motivator through the process.
Right.
The perspective of race day is interesting. It's great. Like I want to share, I guess, from an observer.
Okay.
you see all on social media, and this is like a thing. I saw a clip of Jordan running that your wife posted. I saw clips of Ryan, pictures of Brandon, and I'm not going to say if I'm being honest, because I want to always be honest. To be honest, I had some conflict. It put me in such a funk, because I am texting you and I'm celebrating the fact that you guys are like, I'm going to say the word victorious, which sounds whatever.
No,
but like,
I'll
it is
take
like
that,
you had a
yeah.
crazy challenge and you beat it. You did your thing. You won. And I was sitting at my house watching it, and I was like going into a funk and like feeling like, what the hell am I doing? This like overwhelming sense of like mediocrity came in, and I see your face. For those who can't see, Jordan's like, come on, buddy, you can take it easy on yourself. I appreciate that, but I think the reality is, like, I'm the one that looks myself. We are all the one. We look ourselves in the mirror.
Sure.
We have that accountability mirror that Goggins talks about.
There we go.
You got to be freaking honest in it. And I felt like I had this choice where I was like leaning towards seeing your victory, your success was putting me into a spot where I was like feeling defeated. Like, and like I wasn't pushing myself hard enough, wasn't actually living up to the standard that I wanted because of all X, Y, Z circumstances, all excuses that I make for myself. And so I was thinking about this yesterday, and I'm like, why am I letting their success put me in this funk where I feel crappy about myself? And I remembered that like a victorious person, like, is going to have, like, watching that will have two things. I guess I'll respond to that. It's like, I can either feel like defeated or less than or bad about myself, like a victim, or you're going to be inspired by it. And that's my choice to make.
Sure.
And how I'm going to respond to this. And I was like looking at it, I was like, no, it's not up to Jordan. The person that is walking in victory and accomplishing their goals and beating the things that they said, they're like doing the things they said they're going to do. Like, it's not your responsibility to dictate how I respond to that. But I have to choose now, seeing my friends do this incredibly challenging thing. Like, how is that? Am I going to be like, oh, I'm not enough? I didn't, like, you suck. Or do I wake up the next day and say, like, I'm going to get back on my road.
Yeah.
And I'm going to push myself. And the reality is too, is like, I wasn't able to run the half marathon for a variety of circumstances, but that's not even what bothered me. What bothered me is it challenged me in that moment to say, look in the mirror and say, Corey, are you living a life that is more complacent and just settling? Like, am I playing like the weekend warrior thing? Because I haven't been getting 5 to 6 workouts in a week the last month. You know, is it good enough to work out twice a week, to put that time in? It's like, but just like, for me, the answer is no, it's not. But like, I was hit because I felt bad because everybody is celebrating and having these good thoughts and like good wishes, and like, they're all right. I did too for you. But I was also like feeling kind of crappy watching this and being like, they're getting after it way more than I am. I have to text all my friends and be like, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. And it's like, but I'm not proud of myself. I took this a whole different way. Like, but I don't know. That's what I was kind of going through yesterday.
Jordan, how do you feel about that?
My inclination is to try to encourage you. Like,
sure, that's who you are.
You're getting like, so you might be doing two workouts a week instead of 5 or 6, but you're getting time in to still get out there and do things. And I mean, I can show you all the sweaty pictures you sent us over the last 5 months of your workouts, that I'd be lying if I said that didn't help push me to get out there and do mine. So sure, you weren't out there running the race with us, running for fun with us, because I'm not winning like the first place trophy or whatever they give away to the winner, right? Like
You got a medal,
Right.
dude.
You didn't bring the
everybody
medal,
gets a
though.
medal.
That
Completely
finishes.
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody.
But you
everyone,
finished.
I did finish. I have a medal that says that I finished. Yes, I do have one of those.
I don't have one.
because you didn't finish the race.
Correct.
I mean, just to,
You've got the one up, dude.
right now. Yes, right now I do have that one up. Right now,
I have no desire. No.
Maybe later.
inclination. Maybe.
maybe later.
I won't say never.
Well, that gets into another thing of too. Is like just like finding motivation
Mm-hmm.
to do
Yeah,
it. You
right
have
now
to
that
have the
you
right
aren't motivated
motivation.
to do that, and that's fine. Like that was my motivation to do that.
Right.
Corey, because of X, Y, and Z circumstances, you weren't able to do this.
Well, now I have this thing in my mind that's going on that I have to like. I'm gonna have to find a different way to beat this demon because
Okay.
it's like yes, and I think most people that listen, we brought it up before, but like to read it, like I have some issues with my heart that I was not cleared to run.
By the way, Corey is talking about physical issues with his heart, like actual health issues.
No, I have a broken heart.
No, right. Not like
I
a
got dumped when I was
not
21
like
years old. And I
like
never
a
recovered.
spiritual or emotional. Like I have a problem with my heart. I just want
Yeah.
to make that the way you said
that's
it was
a
like,
good distinction. Yeah.
okay, cool, dude. What's wrong
Right.
with you?
Yeah.
But it's not like that.
Yeah. But now I guess in my mind, I'm going through this fact of like, yes, there are certain physical challenges that we all have. You
Sure.
had different ones than I do,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
going
yeah,
from
yeah.
the couch to nothing or to running. Where it's like now I'm in my brain of like wrestling with the fact is like, even if I didn't get the doctor, if the doctor hadn't said, keep it to 3 miles, in my mind, I'm like, could I have done it? And that's like that to me is like just wrecks my brain. And I don't know what the thing is to kind of get through it because it's like I watched it and I was like, you know what? I don't even know if would I have had enough to get through the 13-mile run. You want to think
I think a doctor saying like this is your limitation.
Sure.
And I totally understand. Like I totally understand like the reluctance of. Well, maybe I could have still finished this. I still could have done it. But at what risk does that ultimately?
Yeah. But I don't think it's even the physical part is a part of it. I think it's the mental part. Like I want to know that I'm mentally like I have the fortitude to actually accomplish it. Because like the risk, I'm not talking about like I hear you. There is no, and one of my reasons of backing off the training was because it's like I'm not going to put myself in a physical liability.
Yeah.
There's reason to this. But like I'm challenging like I was just inspired. I was moved by your mental strength, by Brandon's mental strength, by Ryan's mental strength, by anybody that ran it to be able to complete it. Because at a certain point you get to a physical level where it's like your body can complete these miles.
Mm-hmm.
But like mentally, are you willing to push through that? To do 2 hours of cardio is a long time to have your heart rate up at 170 or whatever you are at, like running. Like that's a mental thing.
I think that there are several ways that you can go with this, and I would tell you that being frustrated by Jordan actually doing it is a good thing, depending on what you do with it.
Yeah, no different
Right.
than my challenge from Taylor,
Right.
right? Like,
And
sure.
I think that if you're being told by a professional to not run more than 3 miles a day, then run 3 miles a day for 5 days straight.
Yeah.
And that's 15 miles, and you're within what
Yeah.
you've been told you can do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what I would also tell you is that there are a lot of things that you can do that are just as, if not mentally challenging, that are not physical at all, as running a half marathon or running a marathon. And what you have to have is what we were talking about earlier, is you have to have the right why and the right motivation. You have to. And that's the only way that you ever get over the humps, to be able to get through the tough times and to get through the times where you're doubting yourself and to get through the times where you don't know if you can do it. That's how your brain pushes through of, I can do this because of goal and why, right? That's it. And so for some people who are insane, like David Goggins, like they're like, I'm here to endure this suffering, so I'm just going to do it, right? And for other people, it can be something with their children. It can be something with their spouses. It can be whatever related. And it's just finding that thing
Mhm.
that enables you to push past
Yeah.
the mental barriers
Yeah.
that you have.
And I think it's about presenting new and real challenges into your life,
Yeah.
adding new goals to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, what really hit me with all of it was the fact is like, I had, again, looking at myself in the mirror, I was like, am I in the last month, am I in a spot where I'm really pushing myself, or am I
Right.
being more complacent and be like, I'll get it when I get it,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of a thing. And that's like, that was the part that didn't sit as well, of being like, I just have to be honest and be like,
Right.
it's whatever your thing is, whether it's a financial amount, like a fiscal amount, a physical thing. It's like, we're not all going to be the same. We're
Right.
all not going to be David Goggins.
Right.
We're not all going to
For
be the
sure.
person that can run a 5-minute pace for a marathon, or
Right.
less than a 4-minute pace.
Yeah.
But like, I have to be honest with myself and say, am I actually challenging
Yeah.
myself?
I think that's a
Am I-
fine
am I-
distinction.
Acting in discipline? Is
Yeah.
there discipline in my life? Because that's
Yeah.
really the thing I think
So
that we take away.
this is great. I'm going to come all the way back from the very beginning when you asked the question about discipline and how does it lead to things. I said I didn't want to give an answer yet. I'm going to give the answer now.
Mhm.
I was listening to a sermon yesterday, and a pastor had been giving this message, but he actually had somebody come up and give a testimony in the middle of his message that actually fit very well. But one of the things that he was talking about was this guy had a bunch of hardships in his life, like in a very short amount of time, and he decided that he was going to start reading, and he listed off all these authors and all these books that he was reading, and he said that it started off as a discipline, but then it turned into a hunger. And he, this was in a church setting, obviously, and so he was reading all these books about God and the Spirit and how God moves and all these different things and revival, and he said it turned from a discipline into a hunger, because how could I read these things and not be hungry for more? Right? And I think what's crazy is that when I look at Jordan, it may have been in December, it may have been in January, it may have been in April, I don't know. But at some point, this idea of like, I've come too far, I've done this too much, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. It turned, and I just like these words, it turned from a discipline into a hunger of, I need that. I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go and get that. And I think that can be so, so, so powerful. Jordan, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Are you done with race day? Do you want to ask a question about race day?
No, race day, everybody was happy watching Jordan. I was challenged.
Right.
Great. That's we landed the plane. Matt?
Right.
I'll leave you with one quote before we move on to the next topic. The call to remain complacent will only grow louder until you silence it with a pattern of behavior that leaves no doubt about your mission.
Pick up your mic and drop it. Don't actually.
Leave no doubt.
Right.
It's from Remember the Titans.
Is that quote actually
It's
from Remember
technically
the
from-
Night?
Yost. Herman, run it up. Leave no doubt.
It's not.
You're
It's
right.
from Never Finished.
No,
But
it's also used in the great American film Remember the Titans.
David Goggins was quoting Remember the
Was
Titans
quoting
and
it.
never.
Coach Yost. Yeah.
So I have a question, because I've
Sure.
seen this before in
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
And I want to know if you're mentally prepared for it or not. And if you're not, then that's okay.
okay.
But what I've seen people do, I've seen this several times, of where people have a goal that they set and they work so hard to get there, and they have all the right why and all the right motivation. They're doing it and they kill it, and then they meet that goal.
What's next?
And then after, they basically fall off a freaking cliff
Yeah.
because they don't know what they're working towards. They don't know what they're working for anymore. And so they don't know what to do. And then emotionally, mentally, physically, just absolutely fall off a cliff because they don't have that thing that's pushing them, right? So for you, do you know what's next yet? I mean, we're literally like 24 hours after you ran the race and did what you set out to do.
Yeah.
So do you know what's next? What's going on?
Yeah. So the immediate next goal that I want to accomplish is doing Goggins's 4x4x48 challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping my legs stop feeling like Jello like in the next 2 or 3 days, and I can tackle that this weekend. So I'm
Just hoping to run 48 miles next weekend.
So here's
It's
where I'm at.
amazing, dude.
Like yes, my legs, they're a little bit wobbly right now. Like going up and down stairs, not the most pleasant thing that I'm doing. But like I'm fine. Like That's the worst part of what I just did yesterday, which isn't that much worse than the 10 miles and the 12 miles and the 10s and the 8s and all the other amounts of training that I did leading up to this point, right? Like, sure, my legs were sore after I did 10 miles. They're sore after I did 12. They're sore after I did 13. They're going to get back to normal, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Right.
And I don't have to grimace and like cautiously walk down the stairs so I don't fall, right?
So just for I wanted to Google to make sure I
Yeah.
wasn't saying this wrong.
Give the
Okay.
people-
But just so everyone
context.
knows, the 4x4 by
thank you.
48
Yeah, my fault.
is 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yep.
Okay. So when you think about that, like
Your dog.
that's I mean it is 48 miles,
It's 48 miles
Right.
over 48 hours.
and you
Yep.
run 4 miles at a time.
Yeah. Or walk or
Right.
crawl or
So-
whatever it
So you
takes.
ran the half marathon,
I did that.
13.1.
Yep.
And that 0.1 is important.
That's
if you
super
say
important.
13 to people, they get super mad.
No, that
Or
that
26
that
instead of 26.2.
that point one is huge.
Was the 0.1 the hardest piece?
I'm gonna say no, just because so like at least a half a mile leading up to that point, I knew I was up against the clock.
Got you.
So
you're
like,
driving there.
like
You're
where I was from a time standpoint, I knew I had to book it, so I was just trying to get to that finish line.
Right.
So
No, I've
and you
heard,
saw it too, probably. Like,
Right.
it was in
oh
front of
yeah,
you, so you're
I
just
saw it and I looked down at my watch and like on the video that my wife posted, like I'm pretty sure you see me looking at my watch, and luckily you can't zoom in and see like much more facial expression or words. Yeah,
because I've heard like on Instagram Reels or whatever that like the 0.1 is the hardest, or the 26.2, the 0.2 is the hardest, ultra marathon or like a 100-mile race, like the 99th mile, the last mile is the hardest one.
Mm.
It
And in
kinda
my
makes
head,
sense.
it's like it makes sense, but in my head, it's also like you're so close to the end. Why don't you you just do it? But I've never done it, so I like can't
Yeah.
sit here and try to figure it out. But so 4x4 by 48.
4x4 by 48.
Then what? Because that's like you're setting this goal of like next week,
Like and
Potentially.
I want to do it so quickly
right?
because I'm still in like game shape, if you will,
Mhm.
right? Like I had a couple good meals
Right.
from like a high calorie, high fat, like not good from a nutritional standpoint, but
Good for the
food that-
soul.
good for
Uh-huh.
good for my soul. Things that I haven't truly been able to eat that much of over the
No,
last.
they are things that you could have had. You chose not to.
Oh, he had.
You're
and he had
exactly
some
right.
in
Thank you
moderation.
thank you for that clarification. Yeah, but like I'm still conditioned, quote unquote, to like run right now, so that's why I want to tackle this so quickly.
Right. And then what's after that?
I am loosely playing around with an idea that I'm not willing to commit to at this point in time.
Can you tell us what the idea is?
The idea,
Without committing to it?
Without committing to it, a non-binding idea
Yeah.
that I'm not sure I'm going to go through with yet. That might not happen at all. I'm drummer back.
Great
jump roll.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Good job. A full marathon.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's one that I
When?
looked
Like
into.
in 2 weeks from now? Like what are we talking here?
It's September. So
Wow.
the training plan that Corey put me on from the Pittsburgh Marathon was an 18-week training plan to get from January 1st to May 7th,
Right.
or I guess May 6th, May 7th being the race day. Roughly 18 weeks from a week from today
Mhm.
is when there's a full marathon in Erie, PA.
Right.
So like 2 hours
Mm.
from here ish. I
Right.
don't know how far it is, but north a little bit of where we are. That the 18 weeks, it took me 18 weeks to be in a place to run 13, maybe another 18 weeks to run an additional 13. I don't know.
So you see running still being a part of your life. In some way.
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely, several times a week, I want to continue to run a couple miles, 3-5 miles, just to stay active, just to keep moving.
Mhm.
Whether it actually gets to an end of a full marathon or
Yeah.
another half or another race competition thing. Yeah, that's
I think it's
that's
good. I
out
think
there.
I would quote Matt, who quoted Nick, but he talked about this idea of when we hold things so tightly in our hands, sometimes those are the things that we end up having to like let go of, we lose. But things that are loose, like loosely non-committing to a marathon, maybe that ends up working out well for you.
And ultimately, these last 18 weeks have taught me I can do a lot more than what I gave myself credit for, and I think that's a Goggins-ism.
Yeah. Well, let's go
okay.
there, because I would ask these questions as we're kind of like
Okay, go
probably
ahead.
getting to the spot where we're winding down a little bit. The question I would want to ask is like, what did you learn most about yourself during the last 18 weeks?
Yeah, and I'm going to use what I just said as my answer to your question is all of our bodies can do so much more than we give it credit for. And it's not exactly how Goggins says it, but throughout both of his books, I think that's the overwhelming message is it's much more of a mental accomplishment than a physical one. Sure, 13 miles for someone that, eats fast food 7 days a week and does no physical activity seems unfathomable until you truly go all in and set your mind to it. Not that I was living to that extreme of the scale, but I was much closer to that than a healthy lifestyle of actively working out several times a week. So just that, I can overcome and accomplish just about any physical feat that's out there if it's something that I truly want to do.
You put in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of scares me about this idea of a full marathon. And my hesitation, my reluctance is only if I want to dedicate another 18 weeks of my life to preparing for this.
No. I was actually just listening to a podcast or a sermon, I think today, and it was Jackie Hill Perry, and she was talking about the definition of fear. And she was, I'm going to butcher this, but basically it was saying like fear comes from the spot of like being concerned that we'll lack the resources that are needed in a for a given circumstance or moment. That's what kind of like drives the fear. And this idea of like looking at me like, well, I've done this, like now will I have the resources that I need to be able to do the full.
Yeah, the scary thing is I don't lack or question. I don't question that lack at all.
You have it now.
Like I know.
It's just do you
if I want to,
are you willing to do the
if
work?
I want to, continue to be very conscious about what I eat, to continue to put in the dedicated training plan of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever this plan calls for. If I want to do that, right now I have zero doubt that 18 weeks from now I could cross that finish line for 26.3 miles.
Come on,
that's awesome.
If I want to, and that's my biggest hurdle right now. I don't know that I truly want to do that. Part of me does, just to say, sure, here's something else that I've accomplished that less than 0.1% of the population has been able to do. Or now that's a whole different kind of angle to this whole thing is that pride that comes with that.
Right.
So
I don't think it's pride. I think it's very much so like nature to want to build off of what you've already been doing, right? I ran a half, so like the next logical step is to run a full, and I think that's a good point. Makes sense. And I think that not that point, but the idea of what do you want to do is really the heart of like what's next, of that question of like what is next, what do you want to do, because you made all these choices and made all these decisions because it's something that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so now, what do you want? Like, do you want to keep running?
Is that motivation still there?
Right. Or do you need to find, like, that you can, you've already proven to yourself that you can do anything you set your mind to, right? So, and I would say that also, like, proving to yourself that you can do anything you set your mind to also doesn't have to be some obscene, crazy task like running a marathon. Right?
I completely agree with you.
It could literally be, I'm going to spend an hour in the Word every day.
Sure.
Right? And like the amount of people that actually spend an hour in the Word every day, I would dare to guess it's less than 0.1% that run a marathon. Like actually do that? Like that's crazy. I don't know anybody who actually does that every single day, right? I'm not saying that that's where you should go, but where could that be? Where could that go? Where can the driving force behind Jordan McFarland for the past 18 weeks, where can all of that energy and passion and desire, where can that be driven into? And I am excited to find out wherever it goes.
Yeah. Last question then. So we talked about you. What did you, over the course of the 18 weeks and in this process in training and completing the marathon, what I guess I would say like what it could be like a biblical principle, or like what's something that you knew to be true about God that has now reached a different tangible level for you? Or is there something that you learned about God through this experience?
So where my mind first goes to, and please tell me if this isn't kind of where you were thinking the question would lead us.
Just share, please.
Is back to that verse from Hebrews. All discipline seems to be painful at the time, yet later it will produce a transformation of character, bringing a harvest of righteousness and peace to those who yield it. So I read that and I look at it as three different parts. Discipline seems to be painful at the time. It will produce a transformation of character, which brings a harvest of righteousness and peace. Discipline seems to be painful at the time. Yes, I ran 13.1 miles. That wasn't fun to me, right? Like, yes, I did it. No, that wasn't fun, right? The couple of 100 miles that I ran leading up to this point, also not fun, not enjoyable. Like, Corey's got selfies to prove this. Matt has these same selfies to prove of how miserable I looked during this time. Painful at the time. Discipline is painful at the time. What I said no to, the aspect of discipline, what I said no to accomplish this, the food that I didn't eat, the drinks that I didn't drink, the late nights that I didn't have, all things that I gave away.
Which realistically don't hurt you.
No. For ultimately, they're
right.
You're 1% right.
Right.
Like I'm not trying to say like
There's a maturity to that. They're
Correct.
having to lay down the like childlike things.
There we go. Thank you for tying that in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So ultimately, for the betterment of me as a person, as
your family,
as a physical person, as a father, as a husband,
yes,
as a friend. You know, you're exactly right. They're for the better. The second part of that, it will produce a transformation of character, right? So I think that's evident in what came along with making those decisions to execute the discipline, right? Like, I'm not up late, I'm not drinking that much, I'm taking myself out of certain situations that might otherwise not be great for me or my family.
Right.
I mean, and I just pulled up quick too. Like, the definition of character is the mental or moral qualities distinctive to an individual. So like the produced character, there were qualities mentally and morally that were distinctive to you, that were being produced through this because you had to make these choices to act in discipline.
Yeah, I remember a high school coach of mine. Character is who you are when no one's watching.
Yeah,
was their definition, and I'm sure he ripped that off of somebody else.
Denzel Washington, probably somewhere.
Remember the Titans?
Yeah. Also, T.C. Williams High School. And then that final piece, it'll bring a harvest of righteousness and peace. I'm going to skip over righteousness and just go straight to a harvest of peace.
Nobody needs righteousness anyway.
Oh, we're righteous.
Well, just in the context of our discussion, I think the peace.
You are the righteousness of Christ. You're good.
Thank you.
You're good.
There we go.
Go
Boom.
back to peace.
Yeah. So the harvest of peace at the end of it, like that knowing that everything's working in one, right? I don't know that it's for fact shalom. Would that be the same peace?
Sure.
I think maybe
peace, prosperity, health.
Yeah. You know, my mind, there were definitely parts of the race where I had to bear down and be like, suck it up. We still have X number of distance to go. We still have Y number of minutes. We need to complete this. Get moving. Like, get after it. That talked my body into physically carrying out that action that fed back into me. So everything working as one.
Did you feel like, besides the exhaustion, but like as you've crossed the line, you've had a day to go through it, like, do you feel a sense of peace as a result of the discipline that you had?
I do. I feel that just through the accomplishment of the pictures at the finish line, of the medal that's in my office right now, that
on his wall.
I'm sorry that I didn't bring with me.
It's rude.
I wish I'd have had a heads up that was the expectation, but
Matt said it would just be assumed.
Right.
I assume, but you know what they say.
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I think
That's what they say.
About assuming.
Don't you smack about assuming.
Don't.
Yeah. So I think I did achieve that piece.
Yeah.
Now looking back on it, like, almost a day and a half after crossing the finish line, knowing what I was able to accomplish after the last 18 weeks that I put into it.
Well, Jordan,
Tay,
thanks, man.
thank you.
I want to tell you that I want to tell everybody out there that, I don't know, last week maybe, I think you had texted, I don't know if you texted both of us or just me, I don't remember, but we texted about how you were like, you're having all these great people on the podcast, and then you're
world
having
changers.
me.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if I'm right, like I don't know, I'm paraphrasing here, and you are an incredible human being.
Thank
And
you.
I feel like you get told that in some groups that we're in frequently, but I feel like you should be told it more. And I think what's been so cool is that I'm going to say over the past 2 or 3 years, to watch your growth spiritually has been unreal. And then now over the past 5-6 months, to watch your transformation physically and mentally has been amazing. And to see you constantly striving to be a better person, whether it be for you or for your wife or for your child or for whoever, it doesn't matter. You're always striving to be a better person. And I genuinely believe that if everyone on this planet, including me, including you, including Corey, especially drummer Matt, just constantly strive to be a better person, this world would be a much better place. And a lot of the hurt that's in it wouldn't be there nearly as much. It wouldn't be as prevalent because,
Man.
I think that that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Is he came here and he gave us the example, the perfect example of a better human.
Yeah.
Right? Someone that met
Dude.
all of that met all of the laws, that did everything perfectly right. And I think that, we always hear about this this idea. We hear about this all the time in the church, in the Christian world, of like, we just need to be like Jesus. What would Jesus do? We need to strive to be like Jesus, right? And I think that I would be very, very, very hard pressed to find someone that I have a personal relationship with that has done that more than you.
Wow.
In the past couple of years that we've been friends.
Thank you.
So I'm just super thankful that you're here. I'm excited to see what's next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to challenge you on whatever it is and tell you to do like triple it. And then we'll see if you do it, or we'll see if you fight back. We'll see. But
Yeah.
I did tell you should read more books, and you raised your goal there too. So
I did. Yeah. That's going well.
I'm like 2 for 3 on challenging you. So I feel like you're pretty good odds.
Torquay puts you in the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, baby.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jordan, for being
Thank you.
on, man.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Keep after it, dude. Keep inspiring people. You inspire us.
Obviously.
And you, yeah.
If you're listening and you want to know a little bit more, you want to get into another episode we did, episode 3, let's talk about mental fortitude.
Yeah.
That was the first good thing you've done all episode, John.
And then I'll leave you with a quote. In a society where mediocrity is too often the standard and is too often rewarded, there is intense fascination with men who detest mediocrity, who refuse to define themselves in conventional terms, and who seek to transcend traditionally recognized human capabilities. Well done, Jordo.
Thank you.
Superman.
All right.
Love you, man.
Love you, man.
Love you, man.
Love you, man.
Matt, you ruined it. You killed it. You're done.
You got to say love you guys.